Welcome back, Timeline. I'm your host, Tania, and this is the most interesting people on my timeline, a series and archive dedicated to exploring the digital space and how it affects the lives and work of my most interesting online friends. It has been quite a while, and for that, I apologize above all to Dorian, who is today's guest. We filmed this interview about a year ago, and in a very textbook LA way, things happened in my life that made me super busy. All lovely things, but very busy things. But I am back in the groove of it all, and I am cooking up a whole new season for y'all. Enough excuses though, let's get into this episode. If you're new here, welcome. On this podcast, we talk about social media, fandoms, internet culture, but most importantly, we talk about it with interesting people in various fields who I've had the pleasure of engaging with online and IRL. If y'all are not new here, thank you for sticking with us. I am so excited to introduce y'all to more interesting people today and this summer. Today's episode features North Carolina-based filmmaker, sound artist, and overall lovely human being, Dorian Gomez Pestaña. As always, you can listen to all episodes anywhere you get your podcast, as well as watch a visual version on Spotify and YouTube. You can find all show notes and links in the description box of whatever platform you're listening on or at taniadoes.com/interestingpeople. Welcome to this episode of the most interesting people on my timeline. Let me introduce y'all to Dorian. Dorian, thank you for being here today. So the first question really is just, can you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and any other identity or work that is important to you?
Oh my goodness, who am I? Spirals into an existential crisis. Just kidding. Um, yes, my name is Dorian Gomez Pestaña, and I use she, they pronouns interchangeably. I kind of don't care. But I am a storyteller, producer, and sound artist. I am also, I don't know, a citizen of the world, a fellow being, if you will. And just excited to be in this floating rock amongst all human beings.
I love that description. I love it. I was on Pinterest the other day, sorry, and it was like I saw this thing that said it was a passport, but it said like universal citizen or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what? Like that is an actual thing. There's like this thing where you can basically become a citizen of the world and you just can define yourself as that and then I don't know what it gives you access to, but I'm like, how do I get on that? Because that's what I am. Like I am from nowhere, I'm from everywhere.
So I met you, for the listeners, I met you through the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective.
Correct.
Um, and we worked together there for a little bit. So could you talk, about maybe your filmmaking and how you kind of started with that?
Sure. So, I am based in I'm just a Southern girl, you know? I'm really not, but I do live in the South, specifically here in North Carolina. And I mean, I migrated from Mexico, was born in Mexico City, now known as CDMX or whatever bullshit the government decided to change it for. I migrated to North Carolina. We had family here, so I've been here for the past like 16 going 17 years now. So I've been here for a minute now. And I have always been kind of a creative person. I was a musician for a long time, decided that it wasn't a viable career to pursue. Senior year of high school, I had this counselor that I went to, especially as, like college applications were happening and all that kind of stuff. Like everybody was thinking about, oh my God, like what's next in my life. I already kind of knew that I was undocumented. Like I never fully claimed it until a much older age, but at the time I remember going to that counselor and I was like, "Hey, like I kind of want to pursue something in art, but I'm also undocumented. What can you do for me?" She was like, "I can't do anything for you." And I dipped it, So I was like, "Great. Love that for me." And so yeah, so I kind of gave up on music on that end, but I did stumble upon, funny enough. So during that summer from junior year to high school, I taught myself I had a K-pop phase, and I taught myself how to like edit through iMovie, and I was editing like fan videos,
Period. No, exactly.
compiling them.
That's the gateway.
That's right. That's right. It's a gateway drug. And I just taught myself how to edit videos, and for seniors they were offering this film class, and I was like, "Oh, that might be fun." Like I love sound, and also I am kind of enjoying editing, so maybe I could like mix it um in this craft. And then I haven't looked back since. So got into the documentary realm through this program, and inevitably met Rahi, who's in also part of the collective. And from there, like we just kind of it just kind of like blended in together. I got connected to set, and from there it was this very small group of people in a group chat that were just like finding common ground, but also just like community within the film industry that I don't know, it just felt like we were having conversations, deep conversations about our frustrations and our goals, our dreams. And from there it just kind of turned into this whole big thing that is now called UFC. So
I remember you telling me like yeah, it was just like a group chat and it was like FUBU.
yeah,
Um,
for us by us. But yeah,
yep.
it was super small. It was like a signal thread for a long time. And then we got out of the group chat. We made it into a Zoom call. It was like one of the first times that I think I used Zoom pre-pandemic. So I was already like getting that training for once I like went completely virtual for majority of the work that I do now. So
And so then you were in this filmmaking journey, and I think some of the work that I've seen that you've done has just been amazing. Was Refugio, which is a short film, and Unseen, which I just saw on like public broadcasting, which was crazy. So could you
I
talk
wanted to
about those two?
cry, dude. I wanted to cry. Listen, I have been such a fan of PBS since I was a kid. Since I was watching PBS Kids for the longest time. I was one of those kids. And it's interesting being in this space where you kind of like there's parts of myself that I'm like, if I could talk to my younger self, I hope that she'd be really proud of me right now. And I think that's kind of where I'm at, because I remember just to talk a little bit about Unseen. So it made its premiere through PBS via POV. I remember when I was younger, I would make like I would set up alarms to stay up to date when like new episodes would come in. And you know how sometimes like they'd give you like they'd promote the new episode and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, like 5 p.m. Central." I didn't know what time zones were at the time, but I was like, "Yes, 5 p.m." and then it was like an hour later. But um I remember setting up alarms for when that would happen, and like set up an alarm this time, and it just kind of felt like a very full circle moment. So I don't know, I got a bit emotional about it. But so yeah, Unseen, this honestly like an incredible project that I got to work on alongside Seth Hernandez Ronquillo and a bunch of other amazing folks that are also, some of them are also in the collective, others that come from like various different backgrounds, whether it's folks that are part of the disability community, also like majority POC, and like I don't know, it's just such a tender and beautiful film that I think honestly it has allowed me to step into this space as a creative, where I feel like I'm finding myself being way more intentional with how I do my work and how I collaborate with people. I think it's I knew that I always wanted to, within projects, like I knew that I wanted to take a human first approach, in the sense that like yes, we're working on this project, but we're humans before the project. And also like even your humanity, your experiences can bring so much to the table when it comes to the storytelling aspect of it, that it can honestly make or break a project, if like being able to have such a diverse perspective, especially within our teammates, like it truly solidified this story for me. Like it was already a very beautiful story to begin with, but it just continued to make it stronger and stronger the more that we um brought in people from different lived experiences. And so, I don't know, I'm just like super grateful to both Seth and Pedro and our producers and our editing team and like all of our collaborators, especially within our accessibility producers are amazing, our impact producers are incredible, and I'm just like super humbled to have gotten the opportunity to experience such a tender project, um, and also learn from them because I feel um, like I mentioned, I think each and every one of us put a part of ourselves in that film, but I gained so much from it as well. Like I gained an additional portion because I'm like, I was no expert in the side of accessibility. Like I have, for example, like a background in interpreting, but that's only one piece of the puzzle when it comes to like conversations of accessibility. So being able to be surrounded by folks that live that experience on a day-to-day basis, and also are experts in it as well, like made me um be one, it made me like gain more tools on how to approach accessibility in my work, but also it just I don't know, it just opened my eyes into like a very different perspective that I wasn't 100% aware of. So,
I think like the biggest thing that like I got from hearing you talk about working on Unseen is just how kind of transformational it was on like one, the accessibility like that you're talking about, but also when you were talking about coming on as like a producer, like you had been producing, but you hadn't been calling it producing. Like it like that's when you kind of came into your own as a producer officially. So like could you talk a little bit about that too?
absolutely. So, interestingly enough, so I know you mentioned Refugio, which is a film that I wrote, directed, produced, and literally participated in majority of the
Starred
aspect. Like
in,
was
you know,
part like the credits were obnoxious, but but as I was working through Unseen, I was also working on that piece, and I feel like had I not been working with the Unseen team, like some of the things that came out from me during my time working with Refugio would have not been possible. And I feel like that's kind of that's kind of how things tend to evolve in my life. It's like I get, even if they're not super connected, there are pieces or things that I am exposed to that, like, whether or not I want it to, like, it's gonna end up influencing the way that I approach my work. When I was first approached for the project, so for Unseen in particular, it was actually like much like 2 years before I even like worked on it, you know? I Set generously invited me to watch a version of what he was envisioning for the project, and I mean I just kind of knew that there was something incredible on its way to be revealed, if you will. And I wasn't sure where the story was gonna go, but I knew that there was something there. Miss Diane Kwan, as well as Felix and Nara, incredible human beings, and also Dayal Mohammed, who are the some of the core producers in the team. Um, like they were already kind of writing what like as alongside with Seth and Pedro, like they were already kind of unfolding what this story was gonna be. Even though there was still not a lot of clarity as to what the destination was going to be, right? But when I first jumped on the project, I actually came in as a transcriptionist. So there was a buttload of like footage that needed to be reviewed, and in order to help the editing team, like they kind of needed um kind of like a word by word documents that kind of showcased what content was in said footage, you know? So I feel like I got like unintentionally, I got like a whole crash course of both Set and Pedro's relationship through that footage. And like I would just listen in, type, and like make sure that everything was formatted properly. Um, and so I felt like by the end, like I felt like I kind of knew Pedro by then, even though like Pedro had never actually Pedro had met me like once, but we weren't friends or anything like that. After submitting that, a couple of weeks passed by, and set I get this email on my inbox, and it was asking if I was down to like do line producing. I was like, I've never done line producing in my life. I don't know. I don't know what this entails. Are you kidding me? Are you insane? Who do you think you are thinking that I could do this work? And honestly, I'm just kind of grateful for Set for pushing and encouraging me to like step into this role, because at the end of the day, it's like you kind of realize that and it's so common with community, like especially the immigrant and the undocumented community, that you get exposed to so many types of jobs or work, even if it's not paid, that give you the set of skills to do something that has a title per se, you know? But we don't receive those titles because we're not exposed to those scenarios, to those settings, to those work environments. But still, we have those set of skills to do the thing. And for me, it was definitely producing as well. Like, I just didn't realize that I had been producing for so long because I just never called it that. And when Set approached me with line producing, I'm like, I'm not a producer. And then I actually started doing the thing. Like, I flew to Vegas, got to meet for the first time Pedro and his wonderful family, and I'm like, damn, like I have been producing for so long, and like again, I just never called it that. Then I came home, felt very sad because like I thought that was it, you know, like I just had this amazing experience, and I'm like, how do I get more? And then it was almost as though Set had like heard me or something from somewhere. And I was like, would you be down to co-produce? I'm like, are you sure? And yet again, like he would reassure me that I even though like I wasn't necessarily an expert, and I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm still learning. I think we're always learning, you know? There's always going to be gaps within some of the work that we do, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn it along the way.
Just to add a little context before this next part, a few years ago, the Center for Cultural Power hosted a lovely showcase called Beyond Status, which featured films from immigrant filmmakers, including Dorian's film Refugio. The film explores different feelings and emotions that arise surrounding the concept of home.
Jesus from Beyond Status reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you want to do this film?" I'm like, "I don't know, do I want to do this film?" And I didn't know what the film was at the time, but I knew that it had to be idea of what home is as a concept, and also I don't know. Like it's always been something that has never fully been clear for me. Like, what do we call home? Like, what is home for me? What is home for the people around me? What is home when you feel displacement in multiple different layers. I got to do advanced parole, so basically like I got to visit my family and also my birthplace for the first time in like years, you know? And so having that, I knew that I wanted to write a story about it. I just didn't know what that was gonna be. And so when that happened, I was actually I had pretty much like just bought a house with my parents. And so that even like existing in a place that's not your birthplace, you know, or purchasing land for me was also something that was very confusing when everything was kind of happening. And so working like my work with Unseen as well as having that experience kind of like meshed together and allowed me to kind of um step into this creative role where I'm like, okay, like I think there's a story that I want to write. Now, how do I like get it from point A to point B to point C, you know? And that's pretty much the entire concept of producing as well, you know? Like, how do you get it from the beginning up until like it's like fully out and edited and all that kind of stuff? And that's just honestly like how I approached it. Um, it's just that I ended up playing multiple roles at the same time, so it just kind of made it a little bit more challenging. But if there's anything that like I was able to take away from it is that when I got the opportunity to do the film, it was crucial for me to have um a primarily um BIPOC crew. Um like that was a no-brainer and also like a like I just could not if I was gonna do the film, I wasn't gonna do it without having a primarily um like black and brown crew. And I also knew that I wanted to center it in the South because um yeah, I feel like during my time doing filmmaking here, I feel like it was it and it kind of is it's changing a lot more, but throughout my time doing filmmaking here, there's always a sense of like feeling a bit siloed in a way because the industry is not here, but or primarily it's not here. There are a couple of like documentary projects that are happening, but like if you're doing scripted work, you probably just like do it with your friends or like with people um that you've been connected with for a long time. And that's pretty much how I had been doing it. But with those projects, like I was primarily always like the only brown woman on the crew. And so let alone like also undocumented. So it was still crucial for me to for my experience and my story to reflect the people behind the camera. I don't know, it made me feel really proud towards the end. I'm like, I don't care how, well, I do kind of care, but I kind of don't care if the story is as good as I'm envisioning it, but as long as I get the crew right, like that's kind of what matters to me right now, you know.
Yeah, and that was like, I think such a big thing you could bring up in our past conversation is like that underrepresentation driving you to get people in these spaces, and also like within the South, like as a fellow Southern girly, like I feel that even though I'm not there yet, I'm gonna make my way back because it's so true. Like I think people just need to get out there and be in the space. And you also kind of translated that into like the podcasting work. Like you've kind of been based out there now too. So like, could you talk a little bit about that podcast work and what you've been doing out down in the South?
Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. I feel like and you mentioned something really important, and this is like something that's been more and more evident the longer I stay here, is like the South, and it makes me kind of sad, but it's like the South artist spaces, or I guess like the lack of especially like the lack of funding make great opportunities to drive people out of the South. Like really great artists like driven out of the South. And like inevitably, I feel like it's also gonna happen to me, but I'm always like thinking, okay, how can we like always make our way back and like bring whatever knowledge that we have back to the South? or even find opportunities and like bring those things to or center them around the South, you know? So like right as UFC was like emerging, or growing, I got to work on my first podcast and it was called Nuestro South, and it was basically this podcast about pretty much like Southern history, primarily like braceros, farm workers that were based in the South, and basically uncovering like the history during like the Jim Crow era of like migrants at the time, and translate like connecting it to like the modern day migrants, you know? And it was funny because when I was approached for the project, I had never made a podcast in my life. The people that approached me really it was Ricky Hurtado at the time, who ran this program for like elevating and making like college more accessible to Latina students here in North Carolina. I had been doing like some photography gigs and like short small videos for the program that he was helping run at the time, and like he was like, "Hey, I know you like film, and I know you do film, but do you do podcasting?" I'm like, and this is how I approach things when I don't know how to do certain things. I'm like, I don't know how to do them, but I'll find out. And that I did. This is actually where I merged the knowledge that I had from music, primarily in like music recording and production, with like filmmaking and storytelling, where I'm like, I don't know if like I'm gonna pull this off, but I'm just gonna try, and if it doesn't, like we can just like regroup again. And weirdly enough, like it just kind of all worked out. And it was kind of one of the first times where I kind of felt like I was stepping into like my own power as a creative, and kind of pushing against I don't know, like I just always had doubts as an artist, so being able to prove myself that I could do that work was really exciting, because I'm like, oh, I guess I do know some things, and I think I can do work like this long term. Once the first and second season, and like there were multiple others that passed as the years went by, I did like small sound projects here and there, and eventually like now I just got done with another podcast called Me Vacuno Por Qué, which is basically a podcast that just pretty much like an open conversation about the effects of the pandemic, and also like vaccine equity within the Latina community. And also why we as a community might like not, yeah, just I guess like the lack of trust even like in our healthcare system, and kind of looking into what the root of the problem is. I like being able to do that project again also is like me trying to repeat what I experienced with Unseen and also with Refugio, like being able to foster an environment where local artists from like misrepresented communities can just kind of come in and like collaborate together and make something kind of cool. Being able to work with folks like, for example, like Antonio Lanis, who was the director of the podcast, being able to work alongside him, like it was one of those first times where I felt truly confident in my work as a producer, where I was like, you know what, I'm claiming this title. I am a producer, and like that's how I'm stepping into this role. And yeah, and it also kind of translates sort of into the work that I'm doing now with like with Sonia Erika, with like Death is a Business, and like Nomad Kitties podcast. And so being able to feel safe in as an artist, and really tapping into the play aspect of creativity. It's been nurturing me, and also shout out to Sonia, because like I feel like being able to work with her at the time that we started, like it was something that I was really needing, because I was feeling very confused as to um what was next for me. And it made me realize that like aside from producing, like sound is also one of my biggest loves. And so that's kind of where even though like I'm still doing producing eventually, like sound is like the big thing that I want to invest my time, my energy, and creativity into.
Nuestro South, I realized just how like small the world is because Axel and I were like we'd met before at like something in North Carolina, like scholarship thing. And then two people from the cohort who were from Georgia, I ended up like running into them at like when
Oh
I was
my
in Atlanta.
God.
Like um it's small. The South community is small and I love to kind of realize that a little bit. Um
Dude,
so
we're
that was a
all so
great cohort.
interconnected. It's just we're all in silos, and I think that's what ends up happening.
No, but that was like great. And again, yeah, I appreciate that a lot as someone who I felt like I had to leave the South to get some opportunities, but
Yeah.
wanting to come back. And that's like my logic. I'm like, I'm gonna get the experience. I'm gonna learn what all the girlies outside have to say, and then I'm gonna come back. Also, okay, so then when you were talking about that, the last thing you mentioned was working on like sound, and you worked on the Guided Trip album with Death is a Business, which Sonia Erika's on, who was a previous guest who kind of started this whole podcast idea. But how was that? Because I listened to it when I was going out to like I was on the bus. I feel like I blacked out during it. It was so meditative. I was like, I stopped listening to it and I was like somewhere else. Like I was like, how did I get here? But
Oh
could
my
you
God.
talk could you talk a little bit about working on that album?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's so funny because I feel like neither one of us knew that it was gonna be an album until it inevitably became an album. And it was also Sonia's idea too, because I was like, yeah, like it's just gonna be this one episode and then we're just gonna like send it out into the abyss. It's either gonna live within, I don't know, um, within the Nomad Kitties like podcast, or we weren't really sure where this was gonna live. For a couple months now, Sonia and I have been having these like one-on-one check-ins where we just I don't know, we just kind of talk about life. And I feel like when we first started, I hadn't known Sonia that well. Like I knew Sonia from UFC. Like that's kind of where we met, but we had never met in person until we went to Nicole's wedding. Like we actually met there and we had just started like having those one-on-ones over the phone. So it was she didn't know I was coming, I didn't know she was going, and like we're just like like that Spider-Man meme that you're like, what are you doing here? And like I feel like that just ended up strengthening um our our friendship and also our collaborative um process, I feel. But yeah, I mean, we started having these conversations, like these one-on-ones, and yeah, like I was just feeling pretty lost artistically. Like I know that I'm quite multidisciplinary in the sense that like I'm not just a filmmaker, like I'm more than just that. Um and so how do I coexist with all of these other mediums that I constantly want to partake in, you know? I had been longing to kind of reconnect with both music and sound. And so um Sonia was like, "Hey, like I have these recordings that I have from like my trips that I from my traveling adventures, and like they need to be edited and I just haven't gotten around to it. Like, would you be interested in partaking? Like giving it a shot." I'm like, honey, are you crazy? Like, you want me to take care of your story? And that's kind of how it started through one of the episodes with the Nomad Kitties podcast. She gave me some feedback. I did like some of those edits, and then like I started to like actually go ham into the into yeah, like playing with sound. And once I sent it back to Sonia, she was like, "What the fuck is it?" Like, in like the best way possible. And so she's like, "Dude, like that's crazy. Let's keep collaborating." And inevitably like we ended up um we were having a one-on-one and she told me, I don't know, we were just like talking about some of the catharsis that we feel on a day-to-day basis, mainly because of the state of the world, to be honest. And so basically like, I don't know, like making art as an outlet, but also as a form of like I don't know, like as a form of liberation. She told me that she had been like having this ritual with like shrooms and she recorded the entire process and she sent it to me. And I remember listening to it and I haven't consumed anything. I feel like I just went through an entire roller coaster of emotions. Like I felt so cathartic at the end. I'm like, dude, like my brain. Like this is literally my brain, you know? I started figuring out ways to kind of piece everything together, like vibrations, and also like meditative pieces. What is it called? Like binaural beats and
Binaural beats.
sounds.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. I've always been really fascinated by that, as well as like those podcasts that are like fully just full affirmations, like that kind of thing. I've always been, they always get me going, and I've always wanted to try it and make one. And so I was like, okay, like I feel like this is the direction that the creative direction that I kind of want to take with this one. But it's gonna have a bit of a twist because even though I'm like, I feel like I'm on shrooms, like I really want to like emphasize like I want to make you feel like you're on shrooms, even though you haven't consumed anything. And so,
And y'all did. And y'all did. I'm telling you, I got on in West Hollywood. I was deep in Culver City before I realized where I was.
oh my
I was like, oh my God.
God. And so ultimately it became this one big piece. But when Sonia heard it, she was like, what if we just like break it down into multiple tracks? And so like one of the tracks can just be like the nature sounds, the other one can be like the song. I was like, okay, like I don't know how to launch that, but sure, like again, we can figure it out, you know? Never done it, we'll see how it goes. And I don't know, it's just kind of like for me it was a reminder for folks to like if you need to take a step back, take a step back. Yeah, just like kind of allowing yourself those moments to breathe and also to feel. For us to constantly be in like a space of groundness is sometimes not possible. And so how do we coexist with all of this, with all of these emotions and still find time um for rage, for sadness, for joy, for laughter. Um and also for balance, you know. So,
I think that leads to like our next little questions, which are all kind of like the segments that we talked about that were a little fun. But you got started with like music and music being like that first thing you got into. And I feel like that was like my journey as well. And so you told me this story. This segment is called Back in Timeline. And I
yeah.
asked you about your favorite or like just an internet memory that you had that was your favorite and it brought us back to K-pop. So let's talk about it. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your favorite um timeline moment.
So as I mentioned earlier, I had a little K-pop phase, and that K-pop phase became, I don't know, like back in high school, my creative outlet was like um recreating or like doing renditions of covers from like some of my favorite K-pop songs, my favorite K-pop groups. And I don't know, I feel like the cover community, both from like the dancing perspective to the musical perspective to like the vocal perspective too, because they were kind of like all over the place. Also the folks that did like fan drawings, all that kind of stuff, or even like fan edits, were all just kind of interconnected and there was like a small community of us that like just kind of stayed in touch, you know? And so I mean up until a certain point because like I am no unfortunately I'm no longer in touch with them and I hope we get to reconnect eventually, but um there is this show. It's like an internet is it like an internet show? I'm not sure, but it's like it gets live streamed through YouTube and it also like appears on the TV if you have like certain international channels, but it's called After School. And essentially like it was everything was is live, you know. They have like these hosts every week. They announce like who basically like the lineup of the artists that are gonna appear. And one of my favorite bands at the time was this one called EXO. It was basically like if at some point it was 12 members and it slowly decreased for multiple problematic reasons because of the company. Anyways, K-pop is dark, but there's a dark side to K-pop. But um anyways, so EXO had just made their comeback again, and they had just released an album. It was so dope, and I was like I ended up purchasing it. It was great. And they announced that EXO was gonna like appear on After School. And the cover community just kind of shit their hands. Like we were just it was wild. And so they always have this segment in After School where it's like the fan art and like the fan dedicated corner. I kind of don't remember what it was called. But they would basically open it up so you could like submit whether it was like a drawing or whether it was like a dance cover, and other times it was like a singing cover, like a just like an instrumental cover of whatever song they were promoting primarily at the time. And so between my friends and I, we were like, "Oh my God, are you gonna submit? Are you gonna submit? Are you like?" And I wasn't quite sure if I was gonna submit, you know? I was like, high school Dorian was very afraid of rejection. So it took a lot of like encouragement for me to even like have the balls to send that email. But eventually I recorded myself. I was like, all right, I don't know who's gonna see this. I don't know what's gonna happen, but like we'll send it out into the ether, expecting the biggest disappointment of probably high school Dorian's life. And so it was sent out, and then um a lot of my friends and I just kind of tuned in to watch the live show. And yeah, we just kind of like we were just kind of like texting each other like, "Oh my God, are you watching?" And it finally got to the fan corner, if you will. And they start showing like some of the drawings. I see some of my friends who did like some of the dance covers. I'm like, "Oh my God, you're on TV." And then I show up and everybody's like, "Oh my God." It was literally like 5 seconds. Like 5 seconds where two of my favorite members like potentially just saw me. Like I was shitting my pants. I was like, this is crazy. I remember screaming into my computer. My mom came in. She's like, what is going on? I'm like, Mom, I'm on TV. And then like she saw me, she's like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening? And so, anyways, that's probably one of my favorite memories from the internet. Cause I don't know, it was such a vibe, it was such a time, and like it was one of those times where I remember myself being like my most creative, if you will, like unapologetically creative. And so, yeah, man, that show really did a number on me. So,
Yeah. No, and I think two thoughts. One, like I realized that people who like are like hardcore into stuff like standing stuff like fandoms and stuff end up
yeah.
like creating that community back then and then grow into getting community and like creative communities later on in life. Because I feel like I was very much like that in connecting with people who like might not be in your exact vicinity right now. And then two, I told you Mario was gonna come back into play, but I co-worked with Ame and Mario
Oh
down in
yeah.
Long Beach, and Mario and I took the train down together. So we were just talking, it was our first time meeting together, and I'd
Oh
mentioned that you were gonna be on the podcast because I'd talked to you like earlier in the day. And I think I like mentioned like this little story to Mario, and they were like, no, wait, they had a cover Instagram. Let's find it right now. So we're on the train Don't forget, we did not find it, but I
Great.
shit you not. I shit you not. We were on the train, like trying to find it, and I was like, we were like, what would the name be? Oh, is Dorian following the account? And I was like, you hit it too well.
Thank you, Queen. I appreciate it. I mean, I don't mind like I'll share it with you after this, but
Right. No, I just thought it was
um
funny. Mario was like, oh no, immediately we need to find this. We need to.
uh,
And so, like, next question would be kind of like it's the segment What's in a Name? I would love to know how you came up with your screen name, Dorian the Glorian, how that came about.
see, I wish I was creative enough to have come up with that name. I did not though. I have to give the proper flowers to um an old classmate from high school. I think what was her name? I was trying to remember her name. I think her name is Kelsey, if I remember correctly. Also, I'm terrible with names, so it takes me like a good 5 times before it like really clicks. But um no, one day it was like senior year of high school, and this classmate would like give nicknames to people all the time, and she was really good friends with my high school best friend at the time, and every now and then like it yeah, like I would just come into math class um and like call people by their nicknames and stuff like that. And then she was like, like what am I gonna what nickname am I gonna give to you? And eventually it came out to being Dorian the Glorian. So she was like, sup Dorian the Glorian, like every time that I would like come into class, and it just kind of stuck. And eventually my high school best friend was like, oh my God, like you should totally use that as like your username. And I'm like, well, I guess there's no other username that I can like think that would be really cool. And it's just stuck ever since. I thought about changing it to Dorian the Mandalorian because I am a fan of the Mandalorian, but somebody already took it, and I think that we're probably gonna fight at dawn because I'm like, how big of a fan are you really? You know, so we'll just duke it out eventually.
No, just
Um,
fight for it. Like, yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's no other way around it. So, but for now, I think I'm okay with just doing DeLorean. So that's, I wish it was a lot cooler than that, but it was somebody else's brain that really birthed that username into fruition. So,
Yeah. You saying fighting for like Dorian, the Mandalorian. Dana Paola, like, Mexican pop girl. Have you seen that she's like beefing with somebody on Twitter because she wanted the name, and then she was like asking her fans, like, this person won't give me the name Dana at Dana. And so people were hating on that person, and now she's had
my
to apologize. Anyways,
God.
screen names people actually do fight for screen names.
They do. They do. I've seen people like pay thousands of dollars for that username. So I'm like, I should probably open like some shit account that isn't super active and like with a super creative name. I have to really get my brain juices flowing, but I don't know, maybe I'll get rich off of it, eventually.
Screen
'Cause
name mining, that's the new thing.
yeah. Well, they do that with websites, no? They
Yeah,
like
like the
they
URLs are
open a
secure.
domain and then like it's taken and then somebody needs it and you're like, all right, I'll give me $1 million,
Now
you
that's a side hustle.
know?
Maybe so next question is,
Yes.
who are the most interesting people on your timeline?
I mentioned last time that like one of the people that one of the accounts that I incredibly admire um this account called Pintamar. It's like this. I'm not wearing them today. I should have worn it. But actually they made that little art piece at the top. And so, but they make clay earrings and they're super cool. Her name's Marina, and like I mentioned earlier, there's people that I admire and I'm like, when can I like bring them on board to on a project to work with them? And so they actually ended up being our social media manager for the Me Vacuno Por podcast
Period.
for Dope Human Being. And so really, I don't know. I've like been a fan of her work for a really long time and just continue to admire her as an artist. Um the other one, I think I might have mentioned this last time too, but there's this dude that like I don't know, he uploads these quizzes on Instagram. So his username is Rio underscore Okuma underscore rhythm quiz. And he literally does rhythm quizzes. He like plays like a drum set and you have to like figure out what the rhythm is, based on like I don't know, your sight reading or whatever. I've never been that good at sight reading, but I feel like I'm getting better at it. And I don't know, it's just like a fun little interactive um I don't know, situation where I don't know, maybe one day like I'll just get so good at it I will actually succeed at sight reading.
Dude, you mentioned him, and I remember I thought I'd seen the same person, but I actually see somebody else that also drums, but you have to guess what song, like what where the drum beat is from, like what song it's from. And I'm
Oh,
locked
that's
in.
even harder. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow.
Um,
Shout out to them.
but those quizzes, drum quizzes, I'm locked in.
Every single time. Every time it comes on my timeline, I'm like, oh, it's time for a quiz. So, but the other person actually, it's this account called Alice underscore chance underscore. And what I find really, I don't know, I'm always attracted to like people that get me to think in a different way about the world. Like they just make me see the world in a very particular way. And so it's so simple, but like, you know how when you were a kid, like sometimes you would look at the sky and like you would watch the clouds and you would try to guess like what kind of like forms or patterns or even like animals would show up in the clouds. So it's kind of like that, but on a day-to-day basis. So like there's this one video that I remember so vividly. It's like this, she goes into this mall and like she starts creating like this storyline based on shapes that appear on like a silhouette. And it's like, yeah, this like young fisherman is like, and it looks like a fucking fisherman. And I don't know. Like her way of storytelling, 10 out of 10. Would highly recommend. And I just feel so entertained every time that I'm like watching her stories. Um, the other person is it's this realtor. His name is Cesar Gutierrez. And he's so like it's one of those like accounts that I'm like, I don't know you, but like I would love to be friends with you at some point, you know? And it's just this dude, he's like selling houses and he's like, Esta casa bien mamalona. And like
I know
he's
exactly who you're talking about.
talking.
I'm like, wait a minute, am I buying a house in Texas right now?
No, I'm like, I didn't realize I was a Texas girly, but I guess I am now. Anyway, shout out to him. He really like gets me going every time. I'm like, oh, we're looking at a house now. Um, there's this other account called Clown Life Izzy, and it's this it's basically like this digital artist, and there's something about the way that so she has like it's basically like a story that gets so existential. Like every time there's literally no account that makes me want to cry more because I feel like I'm tapping into my emotions. And every time like there's just like conversations about I don't know, like the human experience, if you will, of how sometimes like us as human beings, like whether it is our ego just gets so big and sometimes we don't want to be vulnerable or we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we have to admit that like we have done certain things wrong or like we've even if it wasn't our intention, like and I don't know, I feel so seen by both her drawings and also like the storyline that she incorporates as conversations. And then the last one, there's this like I don't know where they're from, but it's this account called Kaisen underscore 1224. And it's basically like these dudes playing like what's that game about the chicken? Like where you like where you're trying to so you get blindfolded And based on like sounds that you hear, you're like trying to find where the person is and you kind of grab onto them. Essentially, they like play this game on their account, but there's like obstacles everywhere and like basically they get expelled after getting shot with like a water gun. And it's like the most ridiculous thing that I mean, there's been a lot of things that I've seen that are super ridiculous, but it's just so funny like seeing the chaos continuously, you know, get heightened as the person, roams around the room and people like are trying to like mold themselves into furniture, and try to not appear like they're there. So
Thank you for sharing those, and thank you for being on the podcast today. Is there any lasting words, or is there anywhere people can find you if they want to connect with you?
absolutely. If folks want to connect with me, yeah, they can always find me at doriantheglorian on Instagram. I'm not typically on like yeah, maybe don't find me on Facebook, but you're not gonna find me there. My mom sends me memes all the time through Messenger, and like I open them once every full moon. So for my last words, maybe not for life, but just like forever. It's these are just my last words for the podcast. But yeah, no, just like keep having fun, live life, do whatever the fuck you want. As long as you're not like hurting other human beings, just like live life however you think you need to live it. Um, I am constantly being reminded that like each and every one of us are have our own timeline, and so that doesn't always look the same as others. And so um yeah, have fun whenever you can, cry as much as you want to, laugh as much as you want to, rage every now and then if you can, and like tell the people that you find dear to you that you love them. Remind them, give them a call. If they come to mind, give them a call. And so that's also a message for me. It's a reminder that I need to give myself as well.
Thank you all so much for being here today, Timeline. I am so sorry that it took so long for me to introduce you to Dorian, but now that you know about them, make sure to check out their work, including a podcast accompaniment to the documentary Unseen, the album they collaborated on with podcast alum Sonia Erika, and more, all of which is linked in the description box of whatever platform you're listening on. Also, make sure to follow me, your host, on Instagram and TikTok at Tania Does, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay up to date on this series. The Most Interesting People on My Timeline is an independent podcast hosted and produced by yours truly, Tania Dominguez Rangel, with design support from Mayra Sanchez. To support our work further, consider joining our membership base at buymeacoffee.com that at different levels comes with different little perks. And if you've got the big bucks, we are also open to ad slots. With your help, we can keep this podcast going and introduce y'all to even more interesting people online. Thank you to our current supporter, aka my mother, Hola Ma, for making this podcast possible. Stay connected, stay creating beautiful things, and I'll catch y'all in the next episode.